In 1909, the shipyards of Belfast are producing vessels of staggering proportion. Steam power has mastered the continents, and marine engineers are now applying that same industrial ambition to the open ocean. The White Star Line is locked in a fierce transatlantic rivalry. Rather than competing on speed alone, the company pivots to a new strategy: building ships so massive and meticulously appointed that they dominate the market through sheer physical presence. The architect of this vision is J. Bruce Ismay. As managing director of the White Star Line, he dictates a standard of luxury that includes Turkish baths, gymnasium facilities, and private promenades designed to mirror the finest hotels in London. By the time she is completely framed out in the shipyard, the RMS Titanic spans 882 feet and weighs 46,000 gross tons. At the moment of her construction, she stands as the largest moving object ever assembled. She represents a society convinced of its own engineering supremacy, a physical manifestation of the belief that humanity has manufactured a world insulated from the violence of nature. On April 10, 1912, thousands gather at the Southampton docks to watch the ship depart. Passengers filter aboard, stepping into a world of Edwardian comfort, while well-wishers crowd the gangways to witness the start of the maiden voyage. The physics of her size cause an immediate incident. As the Titanic moves through the harbor, her hull displaces so much water that the mooring ropes of a nearby ship, the SS New York, snap under the pressure. The smaller vessel swings within feet of a collision before tugboats intervene. The voyage continues out into the open Atlantic. Over the next 4 days, the sea remains remarkably flat and the sky clear, while the air temperature steadily drops toward freezing. Below decks, the wireless room receives repeated signals from other ships reporting large icebergs and field ice scattered directly across the shipping lanes. These warnings are noted, but the operators continue to prioritize personal messages for the passengers, while the great ship maintains near top speed. Despite a close call in the harbor and a sequence of radio warnings, the ship enters the ice field at over 22 knots. The vessel continues to drive forward through a hazardous sea on a moonless night. At 11:39 p.m., the lookouts in the crow's nest spot a massive shape dead ahead. They are scanning the freezing horizon with the naked eye. The binoculars meant for the post were left behind in Southampton. For 37 seconds, the ship's bow slowly swings to the left. The turn is just a fraction too slow. The starboard hull grazes the submerged base of the ice, creating a tearing so quiet that many sleeping passengers do not wake. This schematic shows the 16 watertight compartments. She can remain afloat with 4 completely flooded, that the Iceberg breached 300 feet of hull. 6 compartments flood, pulling the bow downward, past recovery. Chief designer Thomas Andrews is brought down to survey the damage. He completes his calculations quickly, informing the captain that the mathematics of the flooding are absolute. The ship has perhaps an hour left. In the span of a few minutes, the luxury of the upper decks is rendered irrelevant by the mechanics of the flooding below. As the crew begins waking passengers, a logistical failure becomes apparent. The Titanic carries 20 lifeboats, meeting the legal requirements of the British Board of Trade, which were written for much smaller vessels. This chart illustrates the discrepancy. If every single lifeboat is filled to its absolute maximum capacity, there is room for 1,178 people. There are over 2,200 souls aboard. The evacuation is inconsistent. The earliest boats are lowered half empty, while many third-class passengers remain below, navigating the corridors to reach the boat deck. In the face of these numbers, individual choices define the final hour. Ida Strauss refuses a seat in a lifeboat to stay with her husband, and the orchestra continues to play on the deck as the ship sinks lower into the water. In the freezing darkness, the careful social order of the voyage gives way to the desperate mechanics of survival. At 2:20 a.m., the massive stern rises towards the stars, and the Titanic finally slips beneath the freezing surface. At dawn, the RMS Carpathia arrives in the debris field. Her crew spends the morning hauling 710 survivors from the lifeboats and into the warmth of the ship. When the Carpathia reaches New York, the news reaches the public. Crowds gather outside the White Star Line offices, struggling to comprehend how 1,500 lives have been lost on a ship described as a marvel of modern safety. Government inquiries convene in both the United States and Britain, seeking to parse the chain of errors and identify how so many warning signs were ignored in the pursuit of speed and prestige. The investigations yield immediate changes to maritime law. Ships are now legally mandated to carry enough lifeboats for every person aboard, and a 24-hour wireless watch is established to ensure distress signals are always heard. The disaster forced a global assessment of safety standards, proving that legislation must be updated to match the scale of human engineering. For 73 years, the wreck remains hidden in the deep ocean. In 1985, an expedition led by Dr. Robert Ballard finally locates the debris field. They capture the first images of the broken hull sitting in the dark, 2.5 miles below the surface. The bow is heavily rusted and draped in sediment. Iron-eating bacteria are now steadily consuming the ship. The metal is dissolving, guaranteeing that the physical structure will eventually collapse into the seafloor. While the steel degrades, smaller artifacts endure. Scattered across the silt are pairs of leather shoes, resting side by side, exactly where the individuals who wore them fell. The Titanic remains a decaying monument on the ocean floor, a reminder that the sea does not care about human belief, and that technological ambition remains at the mercy of nature.